What makes a great first line? I'm going to share with you some tips on how to write a first line that hooks the reader and doesn't let go. So the first thing is, like I just said, hook. You want to hook the reader and leave them wanting more. You want it to be a hook. You want it to grab the reader, and you want to leave them asking a question. What comes next? The first line sets the tone of the rest of the book. It tells the reader what to expect in this book. You can include things like character, conflict, setting, mood, theme, style. There's lots of things but you can include all of them or some of them. You don't have to do all of them. You can introduce your main character or characters. You can even ask a question. You can use dialogue, but you really want to make sure about the genre that you're writing in, because every genre has certain expectations. So keep your genre in mind when you're writing your first sentence. The bottom line is this: make your reader curious with that first sentence and make an impression. Also keep in mind that sometimes it's more than just the first sentence. Sometimes it's the first couple of sentences or the first paragraph. And I'm going to give you an example of that in my examples. I'm really excited to be making these videos and helping new authors pursue their dream of writing a book. So if you're enjoying this video, make sure to click subscribe and to click that bell notification so you don't miss any videos. I'm going to give you some examples of first lines, and my first example is from our up-and-coming book, The Uprising in the Electricals Saga. Adele lay on the tattered couch daydreaming about birthday cake and ice cream while the stench of death overwhelmed her senses. I love the imagery that is in that, and I love why it leaves you asking questions. Why is this character laying on a tattered couch? Why is the couch tattered? Why is the stench of death and the vivid picture of that? Why does it smell like death? Who's died? It asks questions. It leaves you wanting to know more. And that's one of the things you want in a first line. So I went to my bookshelf and I pulled a couple of books off, some of my favorites, and I'm going to give you those first lines. So the first one I did off my shelf is The Hunger Games. I know it's a controversial book, but it's one of my favorites. And the first line says this: "When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold." It's a great first line. It leaves you asking a question. Why is the other side of the bed cold? Who was she sleeping with? And why? And it really sets the tone for the rest of the book, because the character has to go through a lot, overcome a lot, and she does a lot of it alone. And so it really makes you curious, makes you want to know more. My next example is The Maze Runner, and I love this book. It's another one of my favorites. And the first line says this: "He began his new life standing up, surrounded by cold darkness and stale, dusty air." I love the imagery in that and how it also sets the tone for the book. It does leave you wanting to know why. What is happening here? How could he start his new life standing up? And why is he cold? And why is there dust? What's happening? And that's what you want. You want to spark curiosity with that first line. My next example is Redeeming Love, and it's by Francine Rivers. It's one of my all-time favorite books. I love this book. And the first line says this: "Alex Stafford was just like Mama said." I love that. It is using another technique. You can introduce a secondary character through the eyes of your main character. And so sometimes when you start with the first line, you're not really introducing a first character. It can be other characters, and that's what Francine Rivers does in this first line. It also makes me curious. Who is Alex Stafford, and what was Mama saying about him, and why was she talking about him? It leaves you wanting to know more. It leaves you curious. And so that's what makes it good. The next book is Arena. It's also another one of my all-time favorites. And the opening line is this: "They won't be taking blood or anything, will they?" Callie Hayes looked up from the clipboard in her hands to the dimpled youth behind the receptionist counter. This is an example of using a question and also dialogue in the opening line. It is also an example of incorporating more than just one line in your opening statement. That is actually 2 sentences, and it works. It piques the interest, it introduces the main character, and it really sets the tone of the book. It gives us a quick shot into the personality of the main character. It's a great way to start the book. It's one of my all-time favorite books, so if you haven't read it, I'm gonna put the link in the description so that you can get your copy of any of the books I've talked about. So I wanna challenge you, go to your own personal bookshelf and start pulling books out and reading the first couple of lines. And what stands out to you? What intrigues you? What do you like? What do you dislike? Some books start out good, some books not as much. And start dissecting the books on your own bookshelf. And I would love to hear from you if you found a book on your bookshelf that has an opening line that just grabs you, hooks you in, and makes you want to keep reading that book. Thanks for joining me. Happy writing that first line of your story, and I will catch you in the next video.